On the 2nd of December 1911, Douglas Mawson set sail for Antarctica on what would become one of the most courageous expeditions in Australia's history. At the time, Antarctica had not been properly mapped. So, after visiting the continent once before with British explorer Ernest Shackleton, Mawson decided to lead his own expedition, the Australasian Antarctic Expedition, to map the coastal area of Antarctica closest to Australia. First, he set up a research base on Macquarie Island. That would give his team a line of communication between Australia and Antarctica. That in itself was a big first, because no one had sent wireless signals to and from Antarctica before. But it was just the start of Mawson's big achievements on this epic adventure. When Mawson and his crew finally arrived in Antarctica, they were met with winds of up to 240 kilometres an hour. That could literally blow you off your feet. In those winds, they somehow managed to build a hut to live and work in. And amazingly, it can be still found there today. Once that was done, Mawson decided it was time to hit the road. He headed out with Swiss scientist Dr. Xavier Mertz, Lieutenant Belgrave Ninnis, and a team of huskies to pull their sleds. Together they travelled 1,000 kilometres east, collecting geological samples and mapping their surroundings along the way. But the weather and terrain only got worse. The three explorers had to drag themselves and their supplies over crevasses and slippery rocks to keep exploring. Then, just a month into their journey, tragedy struck. Ninnis fell and disappeared down a deep crevasse, along with many of their supplies. Mawson and Mertz, realising they were in trouble, decided to head back to base. But soon they ran out of food. It got so bad the two men had to eat their huskies to survive. But what they didn't know at the time is that husky livers are poisonous to humans. So both became really sick, and Mertz died. Mawson carried on, sick and all by himself, battling the ice and snow, and nearly falling into a crevasse himself. But somehow he made it more than 160 kilometres to the safety of the hut. But there was still one last piece of bad news for Mawson to deal with. The ship back to Australia had just set sail that morning. So he was forced to stay on Antarctica with the small crew stationed there for a whole year, until it was safe to be taken home. A year later, Mawson arrived back in Australia and was knighted for his bravery and for helping everyone to understand Antarctica better. Today, Mawson's journals, filled with his many discoveries, are still being used by researchers hoping to learn more about this icy continent. And his epic adventure still remains one of the greatest survival stories in polar history.